I think I can do all of this with the hand pruners. We'll go look at some older trees in a little bit, and I've got, you know, for bigger cuts we can use the loppers. These are kind of nice because if we have a tall tree, I can do some pruning up high without getting up onto a ladder. Anyway, these are kind of nice pruners. The fiberglass handles, not as strong as the metal handles on these, and so I'm really trying to cut a big branch. These loppers, and you can tell if you look at these blades, this thing has been used. But they do a good job of cutting. So those are pretty much the tools I use. Hopefully I don't have to do any horizontal cuts with my saw. But on some of these bigger trees, we might get a pruning saw out to cut out some of the, you know, some of the bigger wood out of these trees. But a lot of times with fruit trees, we're just making some selective pruning cuts, and I'll do 99% of the pruning with hand pruners and loppers. When we do prune fruit trees, so what we're going to, when we prune some of these lateral branches and train the tree, we really do sort of thin the tree out. We remove some of the flowers, which means we're going to have fewer apples, less fruit on the tree, but the fruit that remains is going to be bigger, have higher sugar content, and so pruning really does improve the quality of the fruit, but it also opens up the middle of the tree to get sunlight in, which also helps with ripening of the fruit. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just cut out everything below that. Usually it's about 3 or 4 feet tall is where these lowest branches are. For most like semi-dwarf trees, we usually start with our lowest branch about 3 or 4 feet high, waist height. And then what we want to see is a layer of 3 to 5 branches. And if they're all coming out of essentially the same point, that's fine. If they're spaced a little bit, like here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is our main trunk right here. That's ideal. And then we want to create a space of about 2 feet, and then we want to see another layer of 3 to 5 branches. Ideally, they're going to be spaced, you know, arranged around the trunk, so we don't have a lopsided tree. They're not all on one side of the tree. But we also have to work with what we've got, okay? So if you've got a tree like this that doesn't have any branches on it, what you can do is just top the tree and expect to see some branching develop below that pruning cut. So in this case, we don't have to do that because we've got some good branching here. And we've even got our second layer of branching starting to develop right up here. The things that I'll do on this tree, just prune out the lower, any suckers or any branches below this lower point, and then any branches that are growing inward towards the trunk. And so I'm just going to do a few little cuts here, because I want to keep the center of the plant open. If you look at where a branch attaches to the trunk, oftentimes there's a swollen area at the base of that branch. That's called the branch collar. And then as the tree ages, or even actually on this tree, you can see there's a ridge right in between the branch and the trunk, and that's called the branch bark ridge. You just want to cut outside of those areas. So essentially you're going to leave a little bit of a stub when you make that pruning cut. The other thing I'll look at on this tree is the branch angles. So looks like all of these lateral branches are growing very upright. Ideally, we'd have branches that are coming out closer to a 90-degree angle or much wider branch angles than this. Essentially what happens is these will take off and try to outcompete the central leader. And so it looks like these have been pruned back probably last year, and that was a good idea to help prevent these from creating or developing into multiple leaders. There's a couple options. I didn't bring any spacers with me, but you can actually purchase wooden blocks. They're called spacers that you can wedge in here. And while the branches are still young, they have some give to them, you can actually pull them down and create that wider branch angle by putting a spacer in here, or you could anchor them to the ground. So putting a stake into the ground and tying this branch down to that stake, holding these out for one growing season, and then removing those ties or those spacers, and then those branches will hold that wider branch angle. Another thing you can do besides that is you can cut back to a bud, and usually cut back to an outward facing bud. You don't want to cut to one that's growing into the tree. Cut back to one that's growing in the direction of the desired growth. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lower branches, and it looks like I'd probably select these middle 3 and remove the lower 2 to create that first layer of branches. So 2 quick and easy cuts here, and then that next layer is going to be up in this area of the tree. So these 2 can definitely go right now. Okay, now we're starting to create that space. Of course, I'd like it if we had some more branching over here, which we don't have at this point. And so what we can do to encourage that to happen, since we don't have a lot of branching to choose from, what I can do now is cut it back to a bud on this side of the tree. And actually there's a bud here, 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 and here. I think if I head this back to right here, we're going to see growth probably from all of these buds.
So then that takes your central leader out?
It takes my central leader out, and actually I might leave myself one more bud here. Some of those branches, like this one, that shot up, straight up, so this branch broke or was pruned right here, and so essentially this becomes the new central leader. Same thing's going to happen if I head this back down here. You're going to get some upward growth, but you're also going to get some more lateral growth below that. So we're shaping the tree and having a little faith that it's going to hopefully do what we want it to do next year, or over the course of this growing season, and we'll have something to choose from. So I'm going to head this one back just to promote some more branching on this side of the tree. Thanks. And then I'm going to come in and do some thinning here. Again, to remove anything growing towards the center of the tree. Any of this really, I don't know if I'd call this a sucker or not, Steve, but it's borderline.
Yeah, it's borderline.
Pretty aggressive vertical growth, and I'm going to remove some of that too. Broken branch growing in. And these branches that have turned back in for some reason, I can tell you what, on this branch I'm just going to cut it back to here, since I've got some growth to replace it. Okay, so same thing here. I'm going to cut out some of this more aggressive vertical branching. And I might just, leave that. Coming around here, same thing. So what I want to start to do is create some space here in between my branch, so I've got some parallel growth. Remove one of those. some of this I could wait till next year too. So in this case, we're going to look at, okay, so here's our central leader right here, and this tree has lost its top, but if we prune it, essentially this is going to start to grow more upright. This will become our leader in this tree. And we want to look at, again, 3 to 5 lower branches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to choose from, and we want them, spaced around the tree. So we have some pretty good options here. I think what I usually, I look at these branches and say, well, what are the healthiest ones? If there's any that are broken, diseased, damaged, those are the ones I'll, choose to remove first. And then there's not always a right or wrong answer. Sometimes you just pick one because you want 3, 4, or 5. You don't want 6 or 8. And so in this case, I think I'll take this lower branch off. I might use the lockers here. So got a pretty tight branch angle right here, and we've got some wider branch angles. So this one's pretty tight, and this one's pretty tight. But I like the spacing between these branches a little better than here. So again, it's a judgment call. I think we'd be fine to leave either one of these, but just because of the spacing, I think I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to start with that one anyway.
What's the negative aspect of a steep angle?
So a steep angle, these are the branches that are going to be more prone to ripping off of the tree in a snow load, an ice storm, or even a heavy fruit load on this branch. A wider branch angle is a stronger attachment to the trunk and less likely to fail due to snow, ice, heavy fruit load. Be careful not to do what I just did and nick the branch you're not cutting with your pruners. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. This one is kind of bugging me because it is growing very upright. I'm going to cut this one to 3 branches. Go in and probably start bringing the top of this tree down and reducing the height of this tree. So in order to do that, we wouldn't do that all in 1 year. This would be probably a 2 or 3 year process.
Okay.
If you just brought it down to, say, to this height right now, you would shock this tree. I mean, it would be too much. You'd get all sorts of suckers and that type of growth, and you wouldn't get a lot of production out of it. But eventually, so you could come in here and start taking out some of these tallest branches, selectively, maybe a third this year, a third of them next year, a third of them the following year, and eventually get your tree down to an 8-10 foot tall tree. But again, what I would start with first would be a lot of this dead stuff. I'm not a big fan of the growth that comes down like this, but a lot of times on these old trees, that's what you're going to have to work with. And we can maintain these horizontal branches and prune out the dead, and you'll start to get these upward growing branches off of that. And so then it becomes sort of maintaining this as the main permanent framework of the tree.